It's December the 20th. It's the morning. Yay, I'm awake in the morning and I'm happy about that. I just wanted to touch base because I don't know how much before Christmas I'm going to be able to post from here on out because I'm working really hard on all my things that I need to work on. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my plans for the upcoming year and what's come to me over this Advent season through prayer and contemplation and in dealing with my health problems and everything. What you should know is currently I'm just waiting for healthcare to work for me. I have scleroderma, long-standing scleroderma, and as a result of that, I've had a number of challenges over the course of the disease process. And one of the things that I learned about a long time ago was when I was diagnosed, the doctor who diagnosed me told me, nobody knows anything about this disease. So you're going to have to learn as much as you can because there'll be many doctors who don't know anything about it. And he put me onto some websites. And for the most part, you know, at the beginning, I had a lot of lung issues at the beginning, and it was 20 years ago. You know, when I found out I may not have much longer to live because he was pretty convinced that I had a condition, the crest variant of scleroderma at the time that it was called pulmonary hypertension due to the problems that I was having with my lungs. Well, you know, God is good all the time. All the time God is good. And what ended up happening was it was right around 9/11. The two airplanes, while I was waiting in the waiting room to get this diagnosis and all of this information, the airplanes flew into the Twin Towers. So that was the day that I found out that I was really sick, and by that point, forgive me, I'm just going to have to catch that. I'm going to pause. I apologize for that. That was my daughter phoning. We're trying very hard to get prepared for Christmas, and this year, thanks be to God, I'm hoping at least I may not be strong enough to put on the Christmas that I'm used to putting on and going to the masses that I want to go to. But at least I have St. Michael's Basilica to practice my faith, and I learned that in the pandemic. And I've had a lot of stories to tell about what the pandemic has done to me personally. And, you know, I'm just going to cut a long story short by saying after 20 years of managing my disease process, I came to discover that I had a congenital heart defect that I didn't know I had. And there's an awful lot of women my age and people my age, boys and girls, who've had these undiagnosed congenital defects simply because of the time that they were born, right? I was born in 1962. And a lot of children who were born with holes in their heart weren't necessarily diagnosed because if they weren't turning blue as a baby, the doctors didn't necessarily recognize the hole in the heart. Well, unfortunately, that's an aggravating factor to my disease condition. But thanks be to God, my hope is I can get the hole fixed. I have right to left. And if there's anybody who watches me who are doctors, they might understand what the right to left flow in my heart might mean, but it has been a very debilitating process to get to this point. I also require a feeding tube in order to be able to digest my food properly and be strong, because I have thalassemia. All of this stems from being poisoned in Gagetown as a military brat. But all of that is news that I want to share as far as the obstacles that I've been able to overcome. My husband has been a huge factor. He's a wonderful man, but he's a man. And as such, he's had to make an awful lot of sacrifices to be a good husband and father to my children and me. Unfortunately, he also had a dream. And he's got a gift, a beautiful gift, that he undervalues. And a lot of men out there undervalue themselves. My son, my nephew, during the pandemic, was fired from his job because he was in food service. And unfortunately, his wife was in healthcare. And his boss fired him because he needed to, he elected to be the one to stay at home with his children. Boy, men aren't supposed to do that. They're supposed to ship their babies off to institutions that will mold their children's brains. They're not supposed to look after their kids. You're not supposed to raise your kids in Canada. You're supposed to have the institutions raise them so that they don't get sullied by your convictions and your parenting skills. Teachers are supposed to be the parents of our children in this Canadian society. That's the world I grew up in. The world I wanted to be. My biggest dream was to become either a nun. Shut up. Sorry. Either a nun. Honestly. And I knew that when I was like 7 or 8. But I didn't even know what a nun was. All I knew is the flying nun was my worship. And my granny said her rosary, taught me all my prayers. And my sister got to be a Catholic because she dressed up like a princess in a wedding gown when she was 4 or 5 for her first communion. And I didn't know what those rituals meant, but I knew that they were special. And I knew that there was something beautiful about the faith that I was born into, thanks be to God. So there's that. All of these things are part of my story. The other thing is my nephew, who was fired from his job, was given a gift. And you know what his gift was? He's a brewmaster. He makes the best beer in town. And it's a very exclusive beer. And I suspect that's why the Trudeau government is applying a 6% tax to beer in the new year. And it's because there are so many Canadian-owned, Canadian-made microbreweries that are so successful here in Canada because, like in Germany, we Canadians have a bit of a reputation for liking our beer. And I grew up taking the heads off my dad's beer, and that was wonderful. I love beer. That doesn't make me an alcoholic. It just makes me somebody who enjoys good beer from time to time. And that's the Canadian culture. That's a part of our Canadian culture that I never want to give up. There's so many beautiful parts of the Canadian life that we are being forced to set aside because our government wants everything to be institutionalized and to control us. But he went out and during the pandemic, he became a microbrewer. And he's a very successful one. And he makes the best beer in this area. It's the Banter, something in Banter. I can't remember the name of it. But I want to plug that because if you're in the GTA and you want to try an award-winning Canadian beer, it's a niche market. He's in Brooklyn, and he's got a very successful beer, and it's a great trendy place for young adults like him to go. And he's a success if the Trudeau government and the Ford government doesn't tax the shit out of him. My husband, he's got so many beautiful skills, like incredible. You know how Elon Musk made this Tesla car, and he's made a fortune just because he's an outside of the box thinker. Well, there's many of us here in the Canadian society, and there's a guy named Ken Borick. I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but he was an individual Canadian man who made a niche market out of Calgary, Alberta, a family-owned business that has an exclusive kind of niche in supplying Antarctica and the far north, all the very, very remote locations with food, and scientists go with these aircraft, small aircraft, Twin Otters and DC-3s. My husband was on the ground floor of conversion of DC-3s, old World War II DC-3s, from piston engine DC-3s, which had limited capabilities, to turbine. And there's a beautiful company in the United States that is dealing exclusively with turbine conversions. But he was the only Canadian that was licensed to both convert turbines, DC-3s to turbines, and import them. So he made a name for himself in that, and he's done a lot of really marvelous things. He met Prince Henry, for example, on Antarctica. He was there when they were doing that Antarctic run. He's been featured on CNN. He's featured in YouTube and doing some of his aircraft recoveries. A few years back, when you heard about the company that went down during the summer months here in Canada to rescue some people from the South Pole during the winter months in the South Pole, and saved them, got them back to North America so that they could have surgery, and they won awards for that. That was this company, this beautiful company that is right now struggling because of the pandemic, and it can't afford to compete because it's a small business and people can't make enough money with them. But my husband was satisfied with the kind of money he was making with this company because he was living a dream. He was living a dream, and he wasn't valuing himself the way he should have. And I believe that this company has an opportunity to expand into the Ontario market if Doug Ford is willing to give them a chance and start grooming students out of the aviation program here for engineers. And those students that are engineers and have a love for the kind of work my husband does. My husband inspires people. He can create and run a new installation that can service the far north, maybe expand their fleet of DC-3s, refurbishing old DC-3s. We've got already a company here locally that does that. But unfortunately, it hasn't been doing very well, and it's a flight school, and maybe they can partner with that company. I mean, there's lots of opportunities for people who are outside of the box. But the problem here is Canadian people need to understand that they have resources that don't have anything to do with government. And we got to get rid of this government. And we got to start using the government funding to support the people of each country to develop their niche, to develop their independent business that can compete within their society and provide a necessary service, pay their people well, so that they don't get overwhelmed by the idea. Young people are killing themselves today because they don't see a future for themselves. Will they ever be able to afford a home when they're running for millions of dollars in the GTA? How does a family afford that? And take care of their kids? And have a family life? No. That's what the government has in mind for us. Institutionalize us. Take our children and turn them into slaves. Let's not let that happen. Merry Christmas, people. If we all think outside of the box and start working towards a better future for each other on the community level, on the family, community, neighborhood, go from the bottom up instead of the top down, and I bet you we can all take care of each other without government. And get rid of these idiots that think that they can tell us what words we're allowed to use, whether or not we can have a Christmas dinner with our family or have Mass. Think about it. I love you all. This is going to be a great Christmas for me because I'm going to be able to celebrate it for the first time. Because it doesn't matter if I've got anything to give my children. I'm here and I've got a plan. And I want my children to know that all they need to do is follow their dream, their heart, and what God's gift to them was. They don't even need to believe in God to know that they have a special purpose. And that purpose has a value beyond compare. There isn't enough money in the world to pay for that one soul. That one soul that sweeps the floor. The PSW that gives people like me the support and care that they need in order to wash. They deserve the same kind of accolades that the nurses, that the people that were able to go along with what the government was telling them they had to do in order to treat their patients. God bless you all. Stand up. It's time for us all to individually stand up the legal way. Speak to your MPs and your MPPs and your mayors and say, look, we have an idea to bring business into this community. Are you willing to help support that? I love you all. Merry Christmas. And I hope I've inspired somebody out there that needs that inspiration. God bless you. Have a good day.